genre.
Hello and welcome back to the Doctor's Companion presents Doctor Who The Long Way Around, the weekly podcast where we review and discuss every episode of Doctor Who, one doctor at a time. I'm Cass Fredrickson.
I'm Nick Jimenez.
And I'm Scott Corelli.
And today on the show we'll be discussing the android invasion, the Fourth Doctor's ninth story.
Yeah. So the android invasion, which is written by Madman Terry Nation and directed by Barry Letts, former producer for the show, returning as a director now. This is the first Terry Nation story in 11 years not to feature the Daleks. Prior to this, he's sort of had like an annual tradition with the show of like showing up and writing a Dalek story for them and then being like, all right, see you next year. And this year he was like, all right, let's do a Dalek story. And they're like, how about we don't do a Dalek story this time? How about we do something new? And he was like, okay. So he writes 2 stories. And one of them is called, The Enemy Within. The other one is called Return to Suknan, or Suknan. I don't know.
I like
Suknan. In any event, that one didn't go anywhere, so no one knows what that's about or anything about it. But it happened, and then they took The Enemy Within and they changed it to the Kraals, and then over the course of developing the scripts, it eventually became the Android Invasion, it's an android invasion story. It was basically based on this fear that people had at the time, this sort of like irrational fear that they were like, Russia is a really big country with a lot of space. They could just design whole like replicas of our cities and then just have sleeper agents go in there and learn their way through our cities, and then they would know their way around, and they could do stuff. I guess, I don't know, communism. It was like that was like a real fear that people had, and so Terry Nation was like, "Let's do a story about that." And so that's where this comes from, and that's kind of it. They wanted Nicholas Courtney to be in this. He was not available because he was touring a play of some sort. I'm not sure if it was Shakespeare or what it was, but he was in a touring theater group at the time, and so he was not available. And so that's why they made up this like corporal guy, whatever, the guy at the end that's with the mustache.
Colonel Faraday.
Colonel. Yes, Colonel Faraday, that guy. He was the sort of Lethbridge Stewart sit-in. I don't know. That's basically it. While they were shooting, Tom Baker had to get a stomach pump because he like jumped in a pond and drank too much brackish water.
Oh my god!
Oh my god! They so that happens in, I believe, part 2.
Yes.
And there's a part where I remember almost like making a note of it, where he goes underwater and hides in a pond, and then he emerges, and like in a cartoon where someone will like spit out a fountain of water.
Yeah.
He like spits out water, and the camera holds on him for I think like 2 whole beats.
That's a lot of water.
Yeah.
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 Ugh.
Yeah, so he had to get his stomach pumped after that. So yeah, and that's it. Everything else went kind of the way that it should have, and it was a pretty easygoing shoot, all things considered. And you look at the story and you're like, yeah, I mean, there's not much here that they haven't done a million times before.
Mhm.
I thought at one point towards the end, when it was wrapping up, and I was like, oh, okay, like this is it. This is almost just like a regular day in the Doctor and Sarah Jane's life.
Yeah. 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 There's a moment in, I think it's episode 1 when Sarah Jane gets the first look at an android, and she's like hiding behind a car and she sees its face and she's like, oh my God. And I'm just like, Sarah Jane, you've seen Centauruans. Like, what is what about this android is freaking you out?
But these
so
are
much?
people shaped and not potato shaped.
Yeah, I guess.
I mean, that's arguably her job, is to be constantly,
Yeah.
stunned by everything that's happening.
Yeah. Well, so we talked about this last week a little bit, going into this, how, this story is just sort of like, it's like kind of just like fine, especially but it feels worse because it's surrounded by a bunch of like really, really incredible Doctor Who episodes in this season of the show. Like the next episode we're going to talk about of the Fourth Doctor is like one of the greatest episodes of Doctor Who of all time. So this one is just like, it pales in comparison. That being said, I think the thing that really hurts this is that episode 1 rules, and the rest of it is like just can't compare with that first episode. I think the first episode is like so good and creepy and such a good setup for a really good story that just immediately shits the bed as soon as you like meet the villains of this story. I think I'm just like, oh, okay, this isn't as interesting as I had hoped that it would be. But that first one is really cool. Everybody like walking into the pub and like taking their places, and then like, the bell chimes, then everybody starts acting normal. Like that was like, it's creepy and cool. I don't know. I really like that. So, I think that's my general issue with this, is that the first episode rocks and then the rest of it is like, eh. But what did you guys think? Cass, did you feel any differently watching it this time?
I think I appreciated it a little more now, but like last week was good campy, or like I like that camp more than this camp. It made me laugh, but for all the wrong reasons. Like every time Sarah Jane pretends to like fall is like the funniest. Like at one point she like rolls down a hill, and it's like the least. It's painful to watch, but like really funny. I'm also like I don't like robots, so like this actually happening, like watching like an android of myself like sit up out of a coffin would be like my worst nightmare. But I think
wow.
I think the execution of this is a little boring. Like I wasn't really like into it until episode 2 actually. So it's interesting that you're like, yeah, episode 1 was really good, because I thought it was kind of boring. I think the episodes are too long too. They're like all over 26 minutes. Which is weird.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is weird. Nick, what'd you think?
It really is, it's like, in like more postmodern Doctor Who episodes where they'll do like a drop into just a day, and they're like running like, quick Sarah Jane, like we're getting chased by androids, and it's like, oh, this is just like a random adventure. Like this is to me this is like one of those. Like I think when I was having the most fun, it was just as always enjoying like the effortless chemistry of Sarah Jane and the Doctor. Just like their back and forth, like literally just them walking through the woods in episode 1 was just like, these two. I love these two. But other than that, just like very rudimentary, like just kind of Doctor Who by numbers. And, I love Doctor Who, so it was an agony watching this, but it was like, just as it kept going, I was like, oh, wow, really? There's nothing else? Like the devil's not going to come out or...
I think at the end of the day, a couple of things hurt this. To me, I think not introducing Harry Sullivan's double like early on. Like if he had been introduced like very early on, I think that would have been a really good connection. I also think like having the whole gang there, like Benson and Lethbridge Stewart, I think all of them being like together as android doubles, I think would have been like a really cool like first episode reveal. I also think things got weird too quickly, whereas like it would have been cool if like it was just a hangout episode. Like the first one was like, hey, we're back in town, like let's go get a drink at the pub or whatever. And then like at the end of it, like everybody pauses and Sarah and the doctor are like, wait, what's going on?
Oh, yeah.
I think that could have been really creepy. And
Scott, that's
and
the
cool.
world's end.
Yeah. Well, but that's the thing, right? That's what this is. This is the world's end.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, it's the world's end from like a different perspective. But in any event, I think that hurts it. And then I think that Barry Letts isn't the most visually distinctive director. And I think these creatures look muddy and unmemorable. I could not describe them to you right now if you put a gun to my head. I'd be like, I don't know. They're like brownish. They look like mud. I don't know. They just, you can't really describe them. And then like even the pods that the androids come in are like just this, you can't even really describe what it is. Like it's like this, it's black, but it's not like a shape really. It's like,
yeah,
it feels like you could see the fingerprints on it, I don't know. So like and I find that like every choice creatively that he uses is like, I don't know, kind of just the most boring choice. And I think it's just because, like you said, he's been on the show for so long, that like Nick said, it just becomes Doctor Who paint by numbers because of course it would be if it's like the guy who was a longtime producer of Doctor Who and was the producer of the era where Unit was like the big thing. He's just coming into this and like doing this in his sleep, and you can kind of feel it, I think. So
that's fair.
Anyway, yeah,
that's legit.
But I always do forget this one as a Unit story.
Yeah, well, because Unit really doesn't come into play until around part 3 and 4, I think, right?
Yeah, proper Unit. Yeah, the building is in. There's a unit. I mean, if you want to get right into it, like episode 1 just like starts immediately like, well, there's an android. He's walking through the floor.
An incredible close-up.
The Android Invasion, Part 1. Written by Terry Nation. Directed by Barry Letts. Produced by Philip Hinchcliffe. Script edited by Robert Holmes. Air date 22nd of November, 1975. A Unit soldier walks jerkily through the woods as if in a trance. Nearby, the TARDIS materializes as the Doctor explains that the linear coordinates were off and they could be miles from London. Sarah is just glad to be back on Earth. The Doctor gets strange radiation readings from the area and they head toward the nearest village to investigate. As they walk, the Doctor and Sarah meet 4 figures in white overalls wearing helmets with dark-tinted visors. When the Doctor asks them for directions, they shoot at them, and the Doctor and Sarah are forced to run away. Sarah slips down a hillside and clings to a cliff edge. As the Doctor helps her up, they see the soldier jerkily making his way towards the cliff's edge. The Doctor shouts at him to stop, but he ignores the Doctor and leaps to his death. The Doctor searches the body. He finds a wallet full of shiny, freshly minted coins, all dated the same year. They also spot a casket-shaped pod nearby, which the Doctor finds familiar. Before he can identify it, shots ring out. the white-suited figures have found them again. The doctor and Sarah run for it, avoiding their pursuers. They reach a village which Sarah recognizes. It lies about a mile from a space defense station. The village, however, is deathly quiet and seems empty. The doctor decides to try the local pub, but it too is empty, and the doctor finds the same freshly minted coins in the register. A large pickup truck arrives full of what seem to be villagers, all acting similarly entranced as the soldier from earlier. Two of the white overall figures emerge from the truck's cab and help the villagers off the truck, and they distribute themselves around the village. Several of them enter the pub while Sarah and the doctor hide in the storeroom. The villagers take their seats silently, waiting motionless until the clock strikes 8, whereupon they suddenly come to life, acting normally. The doctor intends to get to the Space Defense Station and contact UNIT. He leaves, telling Sarah to meet him at the TARDIS if anything goes wrong. However, the entranced soldier, who apparently isn't dead, finds her in the storeroom and questions her. The pub's landlord suggests that Sarah might be part of the test. When Sarah asks what the test is, he tells Sarah that she should go. Outside, Sarah observes one of the white overall figures turn around, revealing a robotic face. Sarah runs for the woods, reaching the TARDIS, where she spots another casket-shaped pod next to it and goes to examine it, leaving the TARDIS key in the lock. Suddenly, the TARDIS dematerializes. As Sarah is still trying to understand why, a hand reaches out from the pod. Startled, Sarah sees a man lying inside. When she goes closer and asks the man if she can help, he grabs her by the throat. Sarah breaks free and runs. At the defense station, the doctor asks a soldier where the commanding officer is. The soldier just stares ahead, unresponsive. Also inside the building, senior defense astronaut Guy Crayford is addressed by a disembodied voice named Stigron, who tells him there is a random unit within the complex and orders him to check it out. The doctor enters the office of Brigadier Lethbridge Stewart. It is empty. Crayford enters and points a gun at him. The doctor introduces himself as unit's scientific advisor. Crayford has heard of him, but as the brigadier is in Geneva and Colonel Faraday is in command, there is no one to confirm the doctor's identity. He could be an imposter. Before Crayford can have the doctor taken to detention, the doctor flips the desk over and runs. He makes it outside before he's recaptured by the white overall figures. Sarah sees this and sneaks into the building. She goes to the doctor's cell and unlocks the door, unaware that from behind a wall, an alien face is observing them.
I kind of wish that they, the opening shot is creepy, but I kind of wish they hadn't given it away so soon. Like, you just see this guy walk off a cliff and you're like, oh God. And then he turns up later alive.
Right. Yeah. We, the audience, are like, oh, hey, it's that android.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and it's also stupid because the androids never sound like that ever again. Like, in the rest of the show, they're not like walking, making android noises.
Right.
It's just this one guy.
That's how they would be moving if the doctor and Sarah Jane weren't here.
Yeah. They switch their legs to silent.
Yeah.
Silent mode.
Silent mode, lads. So when they, but because otherwise, if you cut that, the episode just starts with the doctor and Sarah Jane emerging from the TARDIS, and she's like, boy, we don't know where the hell we are today, do we, doctor? And the doctor's like, we sure don't. And like, that's like almost like too generic of a way to start an episode. Like, that's happened hundreds of times.
Because the last one we saw was what, Pyramids of Mars? So like, she's been trying to like go home, and he's been trying to get her home. So I think like her whole thing is just like, oh, are we actually in England in the right year now? Because like that spooky 1900s shit was like,
was it not into that?
Yeah.
No, she's over him this whole story, and I really dig it.
I love her outfit. It's the most like delightfully 70s thing.
Yeah.
There's a part where she's like where she's getting like strapped like to a slab or something in episode 2, and you get a good look at her shoes.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, cool. They have like a print. They have like a cool like floral print on them.
Oh,
she's styling.
That's good.
Yeah, she is. I think she's like the most stylish companion.
I don't know. Joe wears some like
Clara?
pretty crazy stuff that you haven't seen yet.
True. I
Yeah.
haven't seen it.
Yeah. I feel like what's the blonde's name? The companion, the
Rose.
first Doctor companion.
Oh.
I knew you were going to do that. I knew it. As soon as I said it was the blonde.
Polly?
Polly?
Yeah.
Yeah. Isn't Polly like kind of stylish? I seem to
Oh yeah,
remember
she
that.
has like all that
Like-
60s mod stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. She's pretty cool.
Listeners, let us know. Who do you think the most stylish companion is?
I mean, they're going to say somebody from the modern.
Sure.
I think.
Dan.
Dan. uh,
You know, there really is for kind of a mediocre story. I think there's a lot of like proto New Who in this though.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
sure.
Like at the very beginning when he's like, "Oh, eeny meeny miny mo, let's go this way," and they're just kind of like walking. It reminded me of like platonic Ten and Rose.
Yeah. I think that's the thing that the Fourth Doctor era, it's like the first era of the show that like clicked with lots of people, like especially overseas. And so, I mean, he was like the most popular Doctor of all time for like a really, really long time. And I think that's the reason why it's like it's that dynamic that I think New Who attempts to recreate every time now. But like prior to this, even the Third Doctor, as much as I like him with Joe and later with Sarah Jane, it still feels like a mentor-mentee relationship, as opposed to this, where it's like that's an element of it, but then there's also the reverse element of like Sarah Jane just like trying to get her ADHD kid to like stop touching things that he shouldn't be touching, It's that combination, that give and take, that I think makes a really good Doctor companion relationship.
Yeah, there's that moment in episode 1 where she is busting him out of the prison cell. And he's like, "Oh, Sarah, is that you?" And she's just like, "Yeah, I'm here to rescue you for once." Like, I just I like that they like called attention to it, but also like they feel like the most on equal footing, I think, of a lot of the classic Doctors and companions. Because like he's still kind of like condescending to her, but not as much, I think, with some of the other ones.
Yeah, it's like just the condescension, but just the power dynamic is just implicitly different.
Yeah. Because she's been around longer than like he has. Well, I mean, because Sarah Jane was with Pertwee before Tom Baker showed up. So like, I don't know. She's like the senior member of the crew,
Right.
Yeah. And I don't know, like she gets involved in the story a lot. Like, she isn't just, she has knowledge. Is it part 1 where we learn like about Grayford, how like Grayford's dead or Grayford died already, or is that in episode 2?
I think it's part 2.
They don't really talk to they don't really talk to a lot of people in part 1.
Right. So the Doctor finds like a what he thinks is unit offices, and that's where he meets a character named Grayford who has an eye patch.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Which we learn is purely cosmetic. And he's just never thought to like, hey, do I still have an eye?
Right? Like, you wouldn't be able to see, like, you can still see underneath. I don't know. Whatever. That doesn't make any sense.
He's brainwashed. It was fun watching this before I knew that this wasn't the real unit, because it was just like, oh, I like that he's just breaking into unit and they're shooting at him and he's just like, well, all right, I don't have a badge. This is what happens.
Yeah. So the unit headquarters is empty. They find a village that's empty. We get a little folk horror crossover with our last episode a little bit.
I caught that too. Yeah.
Yeah. Which is pretty nice. But the truck full of like android people just like brought in from out of town and just dropped off at the pub. It's creepy, man. It's cool though. I like it.
Oh, there's a part where Sarah Jane finds like those pods that you mentioned earlier, Scott, that the androids are like charging in, and she sees like a dead guy for all intents and purposes. Or he's like conscious or he's awake, but like Sarah Jane gets down and like asks if she's okay. And it just like Homer Simpson starts to strangle her.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. She like really walks in. I was like, well, Sarah Jane, you walked into that one. I don't know what to tell you.
Sarah, you she's too nice.
Was that before or after the TARDIS disappears? I think it's right after, right?
Yes.
The TARDIS just bails in this one. She puts the key in, and then it's like, well, I'm out of here.
This is Android country.
Yeah.
I think they do a pretty good job of like seeding all of the clues like early on. Because are we done with part 1? Are we moving on to part 2?
Oh, so one thing I want to say about the cliffhanger is, the Doctor and Sarah Jane are, Sarah Jane's about to like break the Doctor out of the little jail cell that he's in. And the camera pans up and we get a close up of the monster's eye, like Scooby-Doo style, spying on them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I got really excited because I thought that was a Centauran.
Me too. And I'd seen this one already.
Honestly, this story would be so much better if those were Centaurans. If instead of like a new character, it was the Kraals, because then they're like practicing for like Earth domination. That feels like something that the Centaurans would do. Of like, let's strategize. That's an aspect of the Centaurans we've never even seen before. Is like, how do they train?
Right.
We've never seen them train. They just like show up pre-trained for like every scenario. Like it would have been a really cool story to like see them like coming up with a new like battle plan and like how they go through it and everything.
Do you think that maybe they didn't want to do Centaurans because they just did it like the previous, like in the first Tom Baker season? With that really bad one?
Well, yeah. Well, I think that they were avoiding any retreading of villains this season.
Oh, that's fair.
Yeah, it's all new villains. So I don't even think it would have crossed their mind that this should be Centaurans, but like this should have been Centaurans. This would have been like a really good Centauran story, I think.
And you brought up the Cold War kind of inspiration behind this. And that kind of bleeds into that. It's like, oh yeah, like they are the Soviet Union, like out there, obsessively training to like outsmart the West or Earth.
Right. Yeah.
The Android Invasion, Part 2, written by Terry Nation, directed by Barry Letts, produced by Philip Hinchcliffe, script edited by Robert Holmes, air date 29th of November, 1975. The alarm sounds, indicating the Doctor's escape. Crayford sends his unit soldiers to stop them. While hiding in a storage cupboard, the Doctor tells Sarah about Crayford. But she says it can't be Crayford because he never made it back to Earth after his ship was lost during a deep space testing mission. The Doctor and Sarah venture out to find Benton standing in the reception area. He points a pistol at them, but when Crayford cancels the kill order, Benton seems to be dizzy, giving the Doctor and Sarah a chance to run away. Crayford asks Harry Sullivan to cordon off the perimeter road. The Doctor and Sarah decide to return to the village and warn London, but are chased by dogs. Sarah twists her ankle in the woods, and the Doctor uses her scarf to lure away the dogs. Ultimately, however, she is captured by soldiers while the Doctor continues on. Stigron tells Crayford to locate but not seize the Doctor. He has other plans for him. Sarah, meanwhile, is strapped to a table in an alien-looking room where Harry starts to scan her. Stigron speaks to another of his kind, named Chidaki, who feels the time for experiments are over, but Stigron insists that they must confirm their techniques as flawless. Stigron contacts Crayford and tells him to commence the final test. Meanwhile, the doctor finds the telephones in the village are not working. In the pub, the doctor finds more oddities, like an unused dartboard and a tear-off calendar with only one date. The telephone rings, and it's for the doctor. It's Sarah, who tells him she has been captured but escaped. She asks the doctor to meet her by the village shop and to be careful of the robots. The doctor meets Sarah, who explains how she escaped. The doctor remarks on the providence of her finding the only telephone in the village that worked. He believes they are being tested to find out how smart they are. He decides to take Sarah to the TARDIS and use the radio there. However, the TARDIS is gone. The doctor is puzzled. The ship is not programmed to auto-operate unless... He asks Sarah for her TARDIS key. When she claims she has lost it, the doctor tells her that she never had it. When Sarah put the key in the lock, she released the TARDIS's pause control, and it continued its journey to Earth. Meaning, this is not Earth. This is not a real forest, and she is not the real Sarah. The imposter responds by drawing a pistol on the doctor, who explains that he knew immediately that she was not the genuine article. The real Sarah wasn't wearing her scarf, which he pulls out of his coat pocket. Knocking the pistol out of the imposter's hand, he grabs it by the shoulders and demands to know where the real Sarah is. The imposter pulls free but falls to the ground, its face popping open and revealing the electronics underneath. So part 2 is just like, they're like on the run. There's a lot of time spent in this story of like Sarah Jane and the doctor being together, getting separated, meeting back again, and immediately separating, and then meeting back again, immediately separating.
It's the classic Who way.
Well, yes, but it's done in such a way that I want to say is better than the way that it's done most of the time. Because it's a tricky balance, because you can do it for too long, and then it feels like they're not together at all, but it's so like you keep them separated for too long and it's bad. But like, I mean, I'm never going to complain if they're just together the whole time, but like, then the doctor's always there to get the companion out of scrapes. So like, I think they did a pretty good job of like almost not making me notice what they were doing.
I think there might be at least one rescue every episode of this.
Yeah. That sounds about right. Yeah.
But it's here early on in this episode where we do get the doctor mentions to Sarah Jane, like, oh, I met this weird dude named Grayford. And Sarah Jane's like, but the doctor, Grayford died going into deep space.
I wish everyone called him the doctor, but the doctor.
That's his first name.
Oh, the doctor.
Yes, the doctor.
Oh man. So he's like, oh, the doctor, Grayford died going into deep space 2 years ago this very night. You couldn't have seen. And there is like, there was
seen Grayford in 25 years.
And then they do a close up on Tom Baker, and he is doing like a ghost, like.
You just saw Large March.
Oh, that'd be great.
I wish when he lifted his eye patch, some claymation shenanigans happened underneath in his eye. He had like a crazy like.
It scares the doctor.
Yeah. Anyway. A little Pee-wee's Big Adventure references for you guys at home. Anyway. Yeah. Here's something that I've noticed. Speaking of another example of the many things that this story does that we've seen a billion times before, and we'll see a billion times more as we go through the show. The alien villain of the story talking to their human assistant through a view screen while standing in what appears to be an alien closet of some sort.
Mm-hmm.
Holy moly. How many episodes do we get that in?
Like slightly off screen, so we only see like the weird latex hands.
Yes.
You fool!
Yes. Oh, man.
I say bring it back. I say we don't get it enough these days.
You're probably right. You're probably right. I could have used to see a lot of Chibnall's villains a little less, I'll be honest. They were
Oh, sure.
They were tough to look at. They could have been off screen more.
Didn't we just get like through a screen shenanigans in the one with the Sea Devils that just came out? Am I misremembering that?
I don't remember.
Oh,
I don't remember.
I think
either.
you're right. I think there were some like mind communicating, like do my bidding from afar.
This is my evil lab.
Yeah.
Scott, for $100, what were the names of the two twins from Flux?
No. Nothing.
Okay.
The bad guys?
Yeah, the two bad guys.
Oh. Who fucking cares?
Oh man.
Sorry, this is a family
I
show.
just remembered.
I saw somebody suggested the other day, I don't remember where I saw this, but somebody was like, I think it was like a Doctor Who account I follow for like spy pics. And they were like, so in the final Jodie's episode, do you think they're going to deal with the Timeless Child stuff at all? Or are they just going to have like a big adventure to like see her off? And I was like, can you imagine if they just don't deal with the Timeless Child stuff at all? They just never come back to it. And he's just like, you know what? That was a failed experiment. We're moving on and I'm getting out of here.
That would be the ballsiest thing I have ever heard of. And I could not, like, I would just have to respect him for that.
And Juno's like, hey, Russell, I left you a surprise. It's called The Timeless Child. Didn't explain it. It's all yours. And Russell's just like, thanks, Chibs, and just tosses it in the garbage.
There's a huge file called Tech Tayun.
Oh, man.
Oh, man.
God.
I hadn't thought about
The
that.
BBC just posted a picture like the other day. I'm dating this recording, but the other day of like the legendary Tim Shaw, and was just, like literally called him that in the thing.
What?
The legendary Tim Shaw, and I'm just like, guys.
Wait. Are you saying you saw a spy pic of him?
No. Like the BBC just like posted just like some random like, I don't know, some like, you know, like, hey, don't forget Doctor Who's a thing. We'd still make the show.
Got it.
It was like that kind of post, and it was just like a picture of Tim Shaw just like
legendary
looking mean, and they were like, remember this guy? And it's like, I'd rather not. He's got teeth in his face. I don't know.
Tooth face.
Yeah, they even used a tooth emoji, I think, at the end.
Ew.
Great.
Yeah, I know. It's like, you don't need to. We can see that. We don't need to. You don't need to remind us. I don't know.
So during that part I mentioned earlier, where Sarah Jane meets the robot version of Harry?
Yes.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And then tricks her, and then she's getting strapped into that iron slab.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a part where I think it's robot Harry is like, "Oh, it's okay, it's okay, Sarah Jane. Everything will be all right." And Sarah Jane's like, "Oi!" and I remember thinking it was like the most English sound I'd ever heard.
That's what I was talking about earlier, and then I forgot. So there's that part where, because spoilers, she turns into an android because they like strap her to the table and take her memories. And then the Doctor's hanging out with android Sarah, for like the back half of the episode. And I really like in part 1 when they're just like bantering and walking through the woods. She's just like, oh no, I don't like ginger beer. And so like the doctor like offers her some in part 2 and she like drinks it and she's just like, oh, this is delicious. And he's just like, uh-oh, this isn't Sarah. But I like that the reveal kind of wants to confirm it more than that. And the cliffhanger is like, interesting.
Yeah.
The cliffhanger is really, but yeah, it's cool because like I remembered clocking the ginger beer thing at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think Elizabeth Sladen is playing her android self really well, where it's just the right amount of off.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then you clock Baker's realization.
Right.
And it just all plays really well. And it just is like, it's dialed in.
So there's a really funny story about that, though, because originally that was not supposed to be the reveal.
Oh, really?
And yeah, so in the script, the way that Terry Nation wrote it, he was like, yeah, so when you see the androids, they don't know that they're androids. There's something off about them, but they can't figure out what it is. And what they realize is that they are literally reflections. And so everything is the opposite. Like, they're flipped. So like, if like their hair is parted on the right, it's parted on the left on the android. Cause they're like, you know, like the mirror image.
Yeah.
And so like, that's how it was. And then like the doctor like figures out like, don't you see? Like Harry parts his hair on the right and it's on the left. He's an android. That was the original thing. And Barry Letts got the script and he's literally going to shoot it. And he's just like, this seems too complicated. Let's just not do this. And then came up with the ginger beer thing like on the fly.
See, that's awesome though, because it works.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the kind of even like, I guess the middle part in between that is the doctor. There's a part in part 2 where the doctor's just like kind of just killing time in a pub.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And he meets that robot bartender and he orders one ginger beer and then he orders an additional ginger beer to go.
Right.
And like that's the one that he has pocketed for Sarah Jane later.
Loves a ginger beer.
They should bring that back.
They should. Just getting drunk on ginger beer and jelly babies. Sugar high.
It's a lot of sugar.
Yeah. It's getting all hopped up.
13 seems like the doctor that would have a sweet tooth, I think. Or a doctor that would have a sweet tooth.
Yeah. I also think that she could have used more, like getting distracted by shiny things that her companions were like, can you focus? Can you come back? I think that would have been a fun element for her as a character. But anyway.
If she happened upon like a pub and the pub was like, oh, for some reason the beer's not coming out of the tap, like the doctor would lose an afternoon like fixing it. Or, like,
yeah. I also like I wouldn't mind if like she was just like, marching around, somebody would like just like march around the TARDIS and like talking through like a really serious problem they're having while like mixing up a chocolate milk. And they're like, what are you doing? It's like having a chocolate milk.
Yeah. Yeah. Like a yoo-hoo.
Yeah.
What are the aliens called, Scott?
Kraals.
The Kraals.
Yeah.
There's a part where the two Kraals are like arguing over what to do about the doctor, and the secondary Kraal says that, no, we can't keep the doctor alive. His entire existence is in opposition to conquest.
That's a Terry Nation line if I've ever heard one.
I was like, hell yeah, he is.
Yeah, that immediately makes me think of like Eleven's speech at the end of 11th Hour when he like calls them back to the planet. It was What are you gonna do? Yeah, that's what that reminds me of.
Is the Cass was the cliffhanger to this the Sarah Jane's like android face falling off?
Yeah, her face popping off. Yeah.
Yeah.
Was there was a lot of this going on like in sci-fi at the time, right?
Yeah, because this was around the time of like Westworld,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, kind of like what we were talking about last week with the demons and the whole like
The folk horror movement.
folk horror movement and the satanic panic and all of that. There was like a lot of android shenanigans, and like because this was also around the time of the Invasion of the Body Snatchers remake.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was gonna say like being replaced.
Yeah,
you know?
Mm-hmm.
right. Yeah, and like who can you trust and all of that Cold War stuff.
Mm-hmm.
The commies.
Yeah. We all watch Stranger Things.
The Android Invasion Part 3, written by Terry Nation, directed by Barry Letts, produced by Philip Hinchcliffe, script edited by Robert Holmes, air date 6th of December, 1975. As the Doctor retreats from android Sarah, Chodaki tells Stigron it was a foolish experiment. The Doctor could ruin their plans. Stigron dismisses this, however, pointing out that the village and the Doctor will be destroyed by a matter-dissolving bomb. The real Sarah is being kept alive, so Stigron can test the virus he intends to use to cleanse the Earth of human life. All the while, Sarah is feigning unconsciousness, and when the coast is clear, she gets up and sneaks away. The Doctor watches the truck drive into the village and evacuate the androids to the Kraal base. The Doctor is grabbed from behind by Stigron, who gets two of the white overall figures to tie him up, while the Kraal places the bomb at the Doctor's feet. Luckily, Sarah has made it back to the village. She uses the Doctor's sonic screwdriver to cut his bonds. They run into the base and shut the door as the village dissolves into a wasteland. The two are quickly surrounded by androids who escort them to their cell. The Doctor tells Sarah that they should have realized the radiation levels he picked up when they landed were those of the Kraal home planet, which will soon be uninhabitable. This is why the Kraals are invading Earth. The duplicated village and their androids are a training ground. Crayford enters the cell and tells the Doctor his plan to return to Earth as a long-lost hero, only to lead the Kraals' invasion of Earth. He is helping the Kraals because while Earth left him for dead in deep space, the Kraals rescued his ship and rebuilt his body. The Kraals only want to survive and have also promised him no humans will be harmed as long as they obey. Stigron gets Android Harry to place a drop of the human-killing virus in a jug of water to be taken to the cell. When he arrives with the water, the Doctor hides the open floor plate and wiring he was tinkering with to escape. Harry takes him away, but before the Doctor goes, he tells Sarah not to waste the water. The Doctor is strapped to the Kraal analysis table. It will copy all of his knowledge and experience just like it did with Sarah. Despite what Stigron has told Crayford, he reveals he does intend to kill all humans. Earth's resources are too limited to be wasted on an inferior species. The virus distributed by androids will wipe the Earth clean in 3 weeks, then burn itself out. Stigron will signal the invasion fleet. Stigron leaves the machine to do its work, which will ultimately result in the Doctor's skull being burst apart. Sarah rigs the wiring beneath the cell floor and sets a small fire to lure the android guard. He steps in the puddle of water and is electrocuted when Sarah applies the power cable. She makes her way to the Doctor and turns off the screen. They board Crayford's rocket just as it launches, and the G-forces start to crush them. So in the third one, this is 2 episodes in a row where the Doctor is tied to a stake.
In the middle of the square, yep.
In the middle of the square. Yep. Yep.
Unit, man.
Yeah, it happens. And it's like with vines, too. So it's like extra, like, bulky.
Yeah. That's good.
There's a part where Sarah Jane's like, quit standing around. He's like, I'm not standing around.
I'm literally tied here.
Oh, and then she frees him. Oh, because there's like a nuke that's about to go off.
Mm-hmm.
And she like frees him, and then as soon as he's free, he like sprints out of there and like leaves Sarah Jane in the dust.
She's like, you don't even know where you're going.
Oh my god, the effect when they get in like the shelter and the bomb goes off, but the shelter door isn't quite closed yet, and it just like everything goes to slow-mo for like 20 seconds is the funniest thing.
It's amazing.
Oh man.
This is where we learn more about Greyford's plan. He monologues at some point that the Krull have agreed that they're going to grant him passage back to Earth so he can get the hero's welcome that he feels like he never got, because he kind of resents humanity for not looking for him harder or more. And he's like, yeah, and in return, they're just going to like soft conquer humanity, but they promise no one's going to get hurt. And the Doctor's just looking at him like he's like the biggest idiot in the galaxy.
Because he is.
Like it's pity more than like anger. It's like,
yeah,
oh boy.
He's just like, oh, Jesus. Oh my God. But yeah, this whole thing was an invasion test to see if they could like train these android things to like take over everybody. But yeah, it's literally like watching the plan from The World's End with the blanks, but from the perspective of the blanks. It's very strange.
Do you think Edgar Wright was influenced by this one? Because he's a big Doctor Who fan. So
I feel like I read him mentioning it before.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, I'm gonna look this up because
there was a crazy.
Yeah. Go ahead.
There was a crazy part in part 2 where the Doctor orders a pint, and for a second I'm like, whoa! But then it was ginger beer.
Yeah.
I reminded myself. I wanted to ask both of you: Is 10 the first Doctor to get canonically hammered?
Well, Pertwee drinks brandy all the time. But he's like a man about it. He doesn't get like sloshed.
he just has a steady buzz going through all of his stories.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I just found the thing, and he says, I was such a big Doctor Who fan growing up, and I think in a weird way to the point where I would read the novelizations. I would read the Target novelizations, and sometimes the Target novelizations would conjure images in your head that the TV show could not live up to. I know the Autons are great, but reading those books, my image of what the Autons would be like in Spearhead from Space or Terror of the Autons would not quite match when I watched the actual episode. But strangely, they then sort of had an influence on things like The World's End. And bizarrely, when my film came out, somebody said, was this based on the Tom Baker episode, The Android Invasion? And I was like, I've never seen that one. But then I thought, wait, I've read the novelization. And then I watched it. And watching Android Invasion, I was kind of like, this is like watching a very low budget version of The World's End.
That's amazing. Because, yeah, I was thinking about that the whole time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Like the paranoia.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The pub.
Mm-hmm.
The pub. The Britishness of it all.
Right. They're called the Kraals. They're on a pub crawl.
Wow. Oh my god. Dang.
That's the only thing missing, though, is that in this episode, if just like every hour the Doctor and Sarah Jane had to like down a pint.
It's the only way to be sure we're not androids.
Do it, Sarah Jane.
All right.
Yes.
Is this the episode where she electrocutes that robot with the virus water?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that where she's like hiding in the corner for a little bit and like
Yeah.
they pull up their guns at the exact that was crazy.
Yeah. When he tells her not to waste the water on hydrating herself.
You got to electrocute the android. Don't drink anything.
Oh man, and then the cliffhanger to this one was crazy. Like they escape in the rocket.
Yeah.
And it's just like an extreme close up of Sarah Jane's face getting like smushed down by the pressure.
Yeah. The G forces.
The G force.
It's so bad.
Yeah. Because this is also the episode where the doctor gets copied.
Yes.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, he gets. They're like, here, we brought you food and drink. Anyway, the doctor, you're coming with us. He didn't get a chance to have any of it.
Why? Remind me. Could this have been an Auton story? Like, what are the Autons' deal?
Yeah. I mean, I guess it could have been. I mean, they've been under the control of the Master before, so theoretically, I guess. But I don't know. Typically, they are just their own. They're their own thing. So, like,
do they also replace people and take human shape?
No.
Yeah.
I
No.
mean, I don't think
Okay,
so,
maybe
because
that's why.
their whole thing is like plastic, right? So like they,
Oh, right. Yeah. Well, yeah. They
Right.
replace things like toys.
yeah, and like the mannequins and stuff,
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
yes. Okay. So
but not like replacing a person.
Right.
got it.
They didn't get that good until Moffat. Because even Mickey's was like, obviously he looked like a Ken doll. Like,
Oh my God, yeah, you're right. With the weird
Yeah.
like pizza sweats. Yeah.
yeah. It wasn't until Rory that I think they perfected the humanoid looking Auton.
I forgot that was even a thing, and I'm like, I'm
Oh man, you
reliving,
don't
like-
remember?
No,
You
I
don't
do
remember
now. The hand. Yeah.
Yeah, the most amazing cliffhanger of all time. I remember jumping out of my couch when that happened. Then when his hand drops down, I'm like, "What?"
Oh my God.
Yeah, I remember that.
The Android Invasion, Part 4, written by Terry Nation, directed by Barry Letts, produced by Philip Hinchcliffe, script edited by Robert Holmes, air date 13th of December, 1975. Sarah blacks out but is awakened by the doctor. He tells her that there is a more dangerous ride ahead. Before the rocket lands, the pods will be ejected. The doctor and Sarah will need to ride two of them to Earth to warn the real defense station. He cannot guarantee they will survive the trip. As they talk, neither notices a nearby pod open to reveal an android doctor. On Earth, Colonel Faraday is informed that Crayford's rocket is nearby. Meanwhile, having found the TARDIS in the woods near the village, the real Benton and Harry have been searching for the Doctor and Sarah to no avail. Benton is worried. He has never known the Doctor to leave the TARDIS key in its lock. As Crayford's rocket enters the atmosphere, his radio signal with Earth is broken up by the fake meteor shower of pods, just as planned. Some of the pods land in a nearby field. One opens up to reveal the Doctor. However, he is unable to find Sarah. Sarah, having landed elsewhere, finds the TARDIS in the woods. As she walks around, the Doctor taps her on the shoulder. However, this Doctor is an android. Behind it, a pod opens to reveal another Sarah replica, and the real Sarah runs for it. The real Doctor enters the station and confusingly tells the soldier in the lobby that if he sees the Doctor again today, he is to report it to him immediately. The Doctor goes to the scanner room, leaving the soldier puzzled. When Benton tells him where Harry and Faraday are, the Doctor contacts them on the radio and urges them not to enter the rocket. He will meet them at the lift. The Doctor tells Colonel Faraday about the Kraal invasion, but he is too late. Harry and Faraday have been replaced, and the android Doctor is pointing a gun at him. He slams the door in the android's face and leaps through a window. Outside, he meets Sarah. The Doctor tells Sarah their only chance is to stop the androids before they take over the complex. He runs back towards the scanner room, bluffing his way inside by posing as his own duplicate, while Sarah climbs up the rocket towards the real Harry and Stigron. In an attempt to block the Kraal signal to the androids, the doctor suggests a satellite modification. As a technician finishes work on the satellite's programming, he is shot by the android doctor before he can turn on the power. Crayford enters, saying Stigron promised no killing. The android doctor calls him a fool and tells him about the virus. Crayford cannot believe this, but the real doctor confirms the truth, telling Crayford that he's actually been brainwashed by the Kraal. As Crayford rushes out, he distracts the android long enough for the doctor to activate the radar, jamming the signal to all the androids in mid-step. In the rocket, Sarah unties Harry and Faraday. Stigron enters holding a ray gun on them, but Crayford attacks him and is shot. The doctor suddenly makes his own entrance, punching the Kraal, who falls on the vial of the virus, cracking it open. Before he dies from the effects of the virus, Stigron manages to shoot the doctor. Fortunately, it was just the android doctor. The real doctor shows up and reveals he had programmed his duplicate to distract Stigron. Having successfully stopped the invasion of the Kraal, Sarah and the doctor make their way back to the TARDIS. Sarah says she is going to take a taxi home, but when the doctor offers to take her home instead, she smiles. How can I refuse? They enter the ship and it vanishes.
You know, the androids would be a cool character to bring back. I think, like, I don't know, because in this one, in part 4, we're introduced to the android doctor.
Mm-hmm.
And they've totally done this before in Modern Who, but I always think it's fun when they let their doctor get to play an evil, nefarious doppelganger version of themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like, I don't love Nightmare in Silver, but it is pretty cool when, like, when the 11th that was called anyway, when he gets to be Cyber Doctor.
Yeah. And then there's the doppelganger episode,
right?
The flesh, the rebel flesh or whatever.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, with the mush faced doctor, this weird smooth clay faced doctor.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Gangers. They were called gangers.
Gangers, yes. Though it was like the was that episode written by Chibnall? It feels like it was written by Chibnall.
I feel like we've looked this up before and it wasn't, but it has like the most Chibnall-esque vibes that it just feels like it.
Yeah.
I know we keep just bring up like cool stuff they could have done with 13, but like it would have been cool to see like evil 13.
Yeah.
Yeah, did we get like an evil 12 or 12?
I think we had times where we thought he had gone bad.
Yeah, I think that's probably why we didn't. Yeah. Probably why we didn't.
That'd have been cool if his evil android was like really nice.
Right, and then Clara's like, "What's wrong with you?"
Hello.
And then part 4, I mean the highlight of part 4 I think is it's got to be Tom Baker versus Tom Baker, right?
Yes.
Like
yes.
I don't think I've ever like a louder laugh has ever escaped my face watching Classic Who than when the Tom Baker just leaps, like just wrestling, like leaps on top of the other doctor. That was wild because it comes out of nowhere, and so it's just like I just burst out laughing.
I gotta wrestle now.
Oh man, that was good. It was a good stunt double, good wig.
Mm.
Yeah, he does like a proper the Pertwee kind of jumps out for a few seconds.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Do you think that was just his regular stunt double?
Probably, right? I don't know why it wouldn't be.
Because
why you do it any other way?
How many people that tall are in England? You know,
it's true. It's
Can
like
you
him and
imagine,
Chewbacca, right?
Right?
Yeah.
Like rolling up to work that day, and you're like, "Okay, you got to fight your stunt double today."
What if his stunt double was? What if his stunt double was Peter Mayhew?
Oh my god!
Like prior to Star Wars, you know?
Oh, you worked on Doctor Who. That's cool. Yeah.
I feel like we would have heard about that if that were the case.
That would be like the most incredible like
career. Yeah.
yeah. Oh man. Anyway.
I like all because you say, doctor versus doctor, but for a while it's doctor versus doctor, like spy versus spy. Like,
yeah.
They keep setting little traps for the other one.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Trying to confuse Harry or Robo Harry.
Yeah. The bit where toward the end when he reprograms the Dr. Android and to be a good guy. That was like that, and then like also the fact that this episode ends and there's literally no resolution to the Kraals whatsoever. Like
I know.
They just leave. So like there was a scene that resolved the Kraals and a scene that explained how the Doctor reprogrammed the android. And they just ran, Barry Letts just ran out of time. And it was just like, and they just didn't shoot him. It was like, I don't want to take another day. So they just didn't shoot the scenes. Yeah, it's fine. Whatever. And the episode is what it is. But that's why it ends so abruptly.
It ends with, it's kind of a charming ending where she's like, take me home. I want to go home. Or he's just like, no, I'm not going back in that TARDIS. I'm just going to drive home. She's like, I'll give you a ride home. And Sarah Jane's like, I can't with you.
She's going to regret that.
Yep.
Their next adventure is the farthest thing from home they could be.
Heathrow Airport.
Oh my God. One of the like funny background things that made me laugh a lot is when that Colonel character is like, oh, he's the first human to have been this far in space, and like the actor that plays Benton, like Benton and Harry both like look at each other because like they both like been on the TARDIS.
That's fun.
That's good. Oh man.
Yeah, this wasn't anything. Like I'm having fun remembering it and talking about it because it is, it's like Cass said, it is just like such vintage Who,
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just a little sleepy. And the Kraals aren't the most interesting characters. They're just very like generic Doctor Who aliens. In fact, I was looking it up and I let me see if I can find who it was that played them specifically, but I read it, but I don't know where I read it, so now I can't find it. Anyway, the three guys that played the three Kraals that we get to see on screen, they've played like over a dozen Doctor Who like creature villains over the course of like, from the Pertwee era, I think through like the through the Davison era, I believe.
Oh, wow.
And like you can feel it. Like they feel like a lot of them.
Mm-hmm.
Their voices feel very similar, and it's very very generic. Yeah.
One of them even sounds a lot like a classic Centauran.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. 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 I think one of them sounds like the villain in that episode about the London fire, the Davison story. The Eric Sayward one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know what you're talking about.
He sounds just like that. He sounds just like that guy also. I'm pretty sure if I looked it up, it's probably the same actor.
Because they all have like that
same,
very
like, kinda...
like gravelly, like raspy, like
yeah. And they both have like that like muddy lizard face. Like
Yeah, the Kraals masks look like they were made up of like the residue or the residual putty from like the rest of the series.
Yes. They just melted down the scraps and like formed it into like something that had eye holes and a mouth.
That's a face.
Yeah, they do look like soggy Centaurans. Like they're melting.
Yeah.
Like a bulldog mixed with a Centauran.
Yeah. Horrifying. Well, that's the Android invasion.
Mm-hmm. What's
so-
coming up next, Scott?
Let's see. So next week we have the Fifth Doctor, and we're returning to that old giant snake with Snake Dance.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Does a snake dance?
Do you remember the story that this is a sequel to? Nick?
No.
Okay. What was the name of that story?
Hang on, I'm looking it up.
Okay. Yeah.
I can't.
It's got a giant snake in it. It is Kinda.
That's it.
Oh,
Yeah.
I remember Kenda.
Yeah. So this is a sequel to Kinda. It is it's going to be the return of the Mara, the Mara.
Mm-hmm.
It's a fun one. It's a fun one.
There's some good Tegan in that episode.
Yeah, there
I'm
is good
excited.
Tegan. You're going to like this one, Nick, I think.
I'm excited.
Yeah. But yeah, that's coming up next. That's I guess that's all we got for you guys this week. What
That should have ended the Android invasion. Just that title card. Well, that's all we got for you this week.
See you next time.
Anyway, all right. Well, thanks so much for listening, everybody, and we'll catch you next week. If you're not a Patreon supporter, go to duelinggenre.com/support and check out what we got going on there. It's like 3 podcasts a week minimum. Sometimes it's more. I think last week we had like 5 episodes post into the Patreon feed. It's a crazy deal. Definitely the best Patreon deal you're going to find in podcasting. Most podcasts charge you like $5 and they're like, there's 3 bonus episodes a month. And it's like, it's 3 bonus episodes a week and it's $3. So,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Suck it.
Suck it, other podcasts. And by it, I mean our Patreon. So check that out. duelinggenre.com/support. And next time we'll be back with the Fifth Doctor, the whole gang, and Snake Dance. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.